is Isaac Mao. I'm a social researcher, entrepreneur, and social hacker. So I'm here to try to introduce one of my projects called Musicoin. It's blockchain-based new generation of music business. It's a global one to serve indie musicians all around the world. So we are now having thousands of musicians, from different countries use this product. Also, they try to make money from, sharing their music creations. Also, they receive the income directly from the blockchain system in 100% way. Comparing to the traditional industry, they only get 10% of their, part of this revenue sharing. So we really gave musicians a new opportunity to make sure they can make money, make life from new technologies instead of being kind of exploited by the traditional industry. This is one of my projects I'm serving and I'm supporting, but also I have some other related researches and also investment, to help startup teams to really focus on their objectives and also connected to being connected to each other to make sure their project can be someday being really helping social good or communities or connect communities together, with innovative technologies and ideas. So the main slide, I'm focusing is trying to encourage the entrepreneurship from different communities, from diversified, a combination of team members. Because, for example, my project has a global team. I'm not even seeing most of the members, but we collaborate very well and make it really something really significant happen. Good afternoon. Are you good? So I'm very happy to be here, to share this so-called new technology, disruptive technology, the biggest innovation since web. But there's a lot of myth and misunderstandings. I want to maybe give some kind of insights because those insights not only from several single persons or group of persons, from a lot of people, experienced in the past 8 years, let's say in this way, from since the Bitcoin was created and started to be adopted, and then started to become a phenomenon, globally connect all the people, in different countries. Almost all the countries today, what I see is that they are connecting to Bitcoin in some extent. So can I ask a little question? Any one of you here ever used Bitcoin? Okay. A few of them, not so many. Used. Okay. Of course, everyone heard of Bitcoin already, right? So does anyone believe Bitcoin is a scam? Believe.
Not a complete one.
Somehow. Yeah. Okay. So it's still in a very controversial process for this single thing. But not to mention, there are a lot of new regulations has emerged from different countries, from those developed countries to those developing countries, also to those undeveloped countries. People all know there's something never happened in history that touching about their fundamental commercial foundation, which is about money, that is happening, whatever it is actually starting to shake the foundation of how people perceive money. But again, what is money? This is a very important question we ask ourselves. The money has been used in our human history for a long time. But actually, money is not about the paper note, because paper note is just no value in it. Do you believe paper note has its intrinsic value in it? It's not, because if you give this paper to, for example, to somebody and to say, hey, like you give me food, you give me clothes, you give me iPhone, etc. If they are not living in the same money system, they don't accept it, right? If you give this to an ape, to say, hey, I give them money, you give me some bananas, and the ape would say, who do you think I am? I'm not human, right? So this is the thing. People think about money for a long time, but there are a lot of misunderstanding about money. Money itself has no intrinsic value. And it's something, a story that people believe, they use this kind of thing, a paper note. They don't need to, go to somewhere together to have this kind of, a verification. They just believe, hey, this paper note, if I go to the supermarket, wherever I am, I mean, Belarus, Russia, or in China, in Japan, I just give this paper note to the supermarket, staff. He doesn't need to verify who I am. He just gave me Coke. He just gave me banana. It's the system that people think, they can trust, they can believe, and they don't need to go to any third party to verify again and again and again. So this is about something we want to start. Blockchain is something behind Bitcoin, and Bitcoin itself is a cryptocurrency, but the technology is more important because it's something we never happened in history. We don't need a third party to verify one user from another user who hold the money, who hold the digits, in his account that can be trusted. So the trust in the Bitcoin system is the most important concept. And I will start this by showing this picture back to 2009, in January 3rd, which is the first, real blockchain, get birth and show this data. So today, even today, you go back to internet and you search blockchain.info or other websites who claim they are the blockchain explorer, and you can search block number 1, and you see the same data, from their website pages. So if you go Google, also you can search blockchain, block number 1 of Bitcoin. And you can see the same data from every different services showing blockchain data. So this is the fundamental thing, means that since 2009, we see there's a global data, ledger. We call it the ledger because it's like the bank. They have the ledger system to record all those transactions. So this ledger grow till today. There are a lot of transactions has been recorded, and it's never been changed since it's happened. So this is called, the immune data on the internet. So if someone to say, hey, I want to go back to block number 1, I want to change that data, he cannot. I will explain why, because it's why it's called blockchain, because blockchain is something the data cannot be tampered by anyone who don't have the kind of personal key to handle that block or handle that transaction. So this is the blockchain system. It's a big picture, we see from since first day, and billions of dollars has been transacted via this blockchain database. And the database is not modifiable without, your private control of your account. And this account is merely a mathematical system based on the cryptographic, technologies. So this is the blockchain we see from the external view. And today, there's a big, huge cryptocurrency market we see from all around the world. You see You may not know so many things if you don't touch blockchain or don't touch Bitcoin. But I can tell you that there is already 5,000 to 7,000 cryptocurrency exchanges around the world. You can go to different countries, exchanges, register a user, and you can buy Bitcoin, you can sell Bitcoin. But not only Bitcoin. If you see this picture looks a little bit, too blurred. But you can see blockchain system supporting cryptocurrency, and Bitcoin itself occupy a big pie, a big portion of the whole cryptocurrency market. But there are also a lot of small ones, including Ethereum is another cryptocurrency, beyond Bitcoin. And another one, a repo, and Bitcoin Cash, and Litecoin, etc. There are a lot of other alternative derived cryptocurrencies in this market. So this picture actually shows how active. This is real-time data, actually, I captured, from today. And the value of Bitcoin, one Bitcoin, it's valued $7,667 And the highest price ever goes to $18,000 last year. But it dropped to this price after some fluctuation. So it's a very much kind of financial thing already. It's like a gold. It's like something, people trying to trade it, before they really know what it is, because people have this nature of speculation. So that's the currency market, and people, not in this room, but there are a lot of people already, they're strong believer of cryptocurrency because they think, hey, I can send money to a US partner without going through bank. And he receives several Bitcoins, which means several hundred thousands of dollars he can receive. But without, worrying about he lost the money because he has his own cryptocurrency private key. He can control that. He can also send to other partners in China or across the Pacific Ocean to Brazil and then back to London. So in this process, all the things go through this blockchain database we call ledger within minutes and with only several pennies of transaction fee. But of course, there are some larger transaction fee happening, step by step, because Bitcoin itself is increasing its value. So this is the system we never seen before. Nobody control as a center, but people believe it's the money system like the paper note we go to the supermarket. They can believe it has some kind of value. They can transfer and back and forth. So this is the current currency market. But it's not about money. We are talking about the technology again, because the money part is only one type of aspect of blockchain. The technology itself, it serves more purposes more than money, and the money itself, it's going to be really very well, I have to say, because like you've seen, there's a huge cryptocurrency market. But actually, people outside that world, including many of us, here, we don't know what it means. Just because of that type of technology didn't really benefit to many people here. So that's why I want to really retro back. What is blockchain technology? What it means to us? It's not about only about the cryptocurrency. So can you? Please click that link to go to that video. Is it possible? If it's not, I can just skip a little bit. So I can simply have an introduction of blockchain. Blockchain is using encryption technology to try to encrypt data and put the data together to try to move the data from one block to another block. This is a simple technological explanation. But what's the meaning? It means that everyone can write his own encrypted data into a block and put them together and form a collection. And this kind of collection is visible to everyone else. So it means that everyone else can see the data you encrypted, but they cannot change it because they don't have the private key like you. So they can encrypt their own data into this data block. And then all the data block, was encrypted, and the timestamp was put there, and it goes to next data block. So block by block, people share this kind of data from their, computers, from the network, and eventually they can exchange these data blocks and see everyone else, thing, and they believe that those kind of data, is trustable. Let's see, make a little demo of the blockchain technology. Anyone here ever used cryptographic technology like PGP, GPG, this kind of technology? Oh, very good. Yeah, there are several of them. So you definitely understand that the cryptography technology is the foundation. And let's try to create one of our own block, from beginning. Can you please help? All right. So there's a technology, cryptographic technology called SHA 256. Let's say this is a technology that can help us to make a chunk of data into a small, line of, digest. We call it digest. So this digest, actually, if you input enders, the digest will change. But if you move more data there, use the same algorithm, the digest will change. So all the things you input in the data field will be encrypted in this way. We call it hash. So the hash is the foundation of blockchain because blockchain record this hash, rather than the original data. So everything we put onto the blockchain is a kind of hash. So if you change the original data, the hash will change. Even you change a little bit of the content. So everything, when you go to blockchain, it's used different type of encryption or hashing technology to make sure this data have a unique identity on the blockchain. So if someone changed the data, for example, imagine it's Bitcoin blockchain. If you change someone's balance, the whole blockchain part will become different because of the hash will change. So other people will see, hey, someone is modifying this data chunk. So the block is becoming something invalid. So in this way, actually, this is really foundation. If someone trying to modify your creative work and the hash using the SHA 256 algorithm will be totally different. Even a single bit or a punctuation change, it will be totally different. So on blockchain, we call block means it's data being encapsulated into small chunk of data, we call it block. So the data can be including the number of the block, and also there's an important concept called nonce. Nonce is a special data that put as an extra data. It served as function to make the hash looks interesting, because the hash has some zero at the beginning. So once you put some nonce there, different number, you just know that the hash will be different. But you can definitely find a nonce, a data, to make the hash looks like with some zeros at the beginning. But you need to try a lot of
numbers to make sure the hash have 0 at the beginning. This takes efforts, and we call it proof of work. You need to try different numbers of nonce to make sure the hash looks like with 0, 0, 0 at the beginning. So we define the length of zeros to make sure the difficulty, we call it difficulty, which means that if you try to find the number, you need to take efforts to compute and make sure the hash eventually become 0, 0, 0, 0, and some other numbers. This is just a consensus. What we call consensus is that all people believe that if we find a number called nonce, which can make the hash looks like the same pattern, 0, 0, 0 something, and it called you mine the block. Means you find the right number, you got the block correct. So in this way, people compete on the internet. They all try to find a number from 0 to maybe several thousand to maybe several million to make sure they can find a number to make the hash. Look at the green become green because you find a number from 1 to 59,000 something to make the hash looks like the consensus, length with zeros. So this means this called mining process. Think about you have the computer to do the same thing on your browser. If you eventually find a number with 4 zeros, it can be 5 zeros, something based on the consensus. So it is called mine. You mine the block. And all the people, they use their different computers to compete and calculate. And the first one share his result to say, I found the block, I mined the block. And he's the winner of all the network. That's why you always hear that in the Bitcoin world, people use a lot of computing power to calculate this hash to become the first winner of this block. And then he's the winning miner of this block, and he earned some money from this block, from mine this block. This is the consensus written in the software algorithm of blockchain, of Bitcoin. The same to any other cryptocurrencies. They all define their own consensus. And all the people download the same software, and they try to talk to each other, and some people win, some people lose. The lose party won't get the rewarding of the Bitcoin or Musicoin or Litecoin, and eventually they actually waste those type of energy because they didn't win. They just waste money, waste energy. And that's why Bitcoin today, global mining power has outpaced a whole country like Iceland, who using the electricity. That's very much a waste. But people still arguing, the believers arguing that, hey, don't worry about that because Bitcoin is getting more and more expensive. So it's still worthy to use this energy to mine the block by block. So today, actually, Bitcoin system, they use the similar thing. They mined a lot of blocks already, and they also recorded a lot of transactions. So the data part actually is the information a blockchain try to record. It's something the transaction data will be put into there and share with other peers. And other peers will mine it and eventually share with all the people. And all the people keep the data. So blockchain is something that everyone keep a copy of the chain data, the whole chain data. So from 2008, since Bitcoin was born, actually you download the Bitcoin client, a software. You are participating in the mining process, but most of the time you lose because you don't have the supercomputer power. And also, you need to keep this whole ledger, whole data. So everyone see the whole data, but nobody can change it unless you mine it, unless you have this kind of computing power. So this consensus is the real essential thing of blockchain system. It means there's a new level of people or computing things happening in the world, which is different from traditional business model or other applications. For example, let's think about our projects, presenting here. We really don't need this type of computing power. We just try to use database. We just try to use a centralized database, and we define some business logic. And beyond that, we define this user interface and let user to come to use our application, right? So this is the normal thinking. But in this system, the blockchain system is very much dig into underground. It's not the system upground we see, what we are trying to define. It's underground that many people use computers to compute, but not serving any purposes. It's just serving data sharing and calculating, this type of purposes. But it really, what's the meaning of this? So that's something I want to share. Excuse me. Don't worry about the technology. If you really want to know more, I can, have some small talks later. I'm saying that blockchain, because of this kind of capability, the hash calculating and modification is actually very difficult to change if you don't have the private key, because even a small length of encryption is very hard to be decrypted in mathematical theory. It's very much different from some simple data operation. It's a kind of quantum computer level of computing, which can really crack those, I call SH256, this kind of algorithm. It's very difficult. So that's why the blockchain system, once they use this technology, they try to have two very ground level of design goals before they try to apply to different applications and scenarios. The first one is they said, we don't trust any known organizations because they are too untrustable. For example, like banks, like government organizations or company, etc. So they want to throw all those organizations, human factors play a big role. They just try to be decentralized. And the second is, if you don't trust government, especially government, because they try to get people's data and they try to use your data and try to control your, different kind of behaviors. So in those several level categories of things, if you don't want government to do that, you can use blockchain. You can use this type of thing to make sure the data being distributed to different parties without relying on a centralized organization. Again, centralized. So in blockchain world, the major goal is trying to decentralize information, the same time trying to make sure the data is trustable. So that's what I said, like on Bitcoin, transaction, I don't need to know who they are in the other end. I just know we have this deal to make some money transferring. So I'm very sure that if I send the money to there, they will receive the money, and then the deal is done, and the transaction fee is very, very low. So the design goals of blockchain seems very ground and very, very promising, from many digital utopians view. But again, there are many things we are seeing not so ideal. Until today, I started to realize that, this technology is promising. It's so-called biggest advancement since, internet, because internet promises us a lot of things. As Tim Berners-Lee, the inventor of World Wide Web, said, right? So internet is supposed to be decentralized, supposed to be censorship resistant, but what happened? So there are a lot of things being centralized, being aggregated, to some organizations. Until today, we have lost a lot of important things in our human culture, like journalism. So it's a kind of dismay to us. The promise of internet didn't really fully realize before is already being sabotaged. So that's the thing. We are talking about blockchain today because it has a high level of promise. But again, this picture, I think, is very much showing what's happening today. I'm trying to, before you really get, some kind of addict to this new term, I'm trying to pour some ice water onto your head, So actually, there are a lot of apps boasted by those cryptocurrency, traders, makers, etc. And some projects, they never delivered. And but also there are some hopes, we can see. So if you are trying to define some projects, later I will see how can you judge that. If you try to cross the border, if you try to utilize the computing power, distributed, in different places. Also, you try to disrupt some industries who is really, not doing well in their history or maybe current situation. You should try to consider maybe blockchain is kind of a selection in your mind. But all the apps in the market today, on the media, on different, kind of cryptocurrency market, I believe hype is much larger than, what they have promised and what they delivered. So this picture is most of the project, doing in the past 2 years, they do ICO. ICO is kind of a term called initial coin offering, because somebody copied Bitcoin. Let's say we have a team here. I'm very sure I can do it, today. If you want to come to me to say, hey, let's create a new Bitcoin. Yeah, I'm sure I can help you to do this. And tomorrow we release to the market. When we do ICO, called initial coin offering, and we ask people to buy this coin, and then it goes to market and started to be speculated, and the price could go up or could go down. But many, many projects, they do ICO, they have a white paper to start, like a business plan. If you have some kind of longer, experience back to 1990s, you still remember the business plan of .com, raised a lot of money that moment, but most of them, eventually disappeared. The same thing to today's cryptocurrency and blockchain projects. There are a lot of white papers, over 5,000 of them, in the market go to ICO, initial coin offering, and then eventually proved they didn't deliver. They didn't realize they already disappeared. And the people even don't know who they are, before they are already, out of this, our view. So this is many projects is doing so. But I want to remind our teams here is that, we do have a lot of promises as well in our own, kind of envisioning process. Yes, but if you don't really know how to make sure, how to implement it, how to realize them, it's the similar thing to this ICO process and bubble, which I see so many things, make people frustrated. They started to reflect what's the problem, of blockchain technology. But it's not a problem of technology. It's about how we really understand, the potential of the technology and also make sure it can help us in the right direction. So we don't want to, let people here to recklessly choose blockchain, but then, following the same path and eventually, being really undeliverable. So I want to see how possible I can be a technical advisor to people. If you want to have some kind of ideas, you want to connect people from different places, you want to decentralize something, which may be possible, you can use blockchain. But maybe, I can give you a glimpse of, review to tell you, hey, maybe you don't even need a blockchain. You just need a database. You just need some verification from different parties, right? So this is something I think today we have very clear, understanding and judgment whether you need a blockchain or not blockchain, whether you need an ICO or not ICO. But let me share again, ICO is a very creative idea from my understanding because it's totally changed the capitalization, how people raise money. I believe many teams, I didn't hear, but I believe many teams, in the market, they need funding, they need money, they need how to make sure they have continuous, kind of blood to make sure their projects, sustainable. But the real sustainability comes from your model, comes from your idea, and comes from your team. This is why I'm very careful to suggest whether you use blockchain or not. So here's a very good guidance from World Economy Forum. I attended once, also shared some of ideas there to contribute this guidance. There are 11 questions you need to ask yourself before you choose blockchain as your infrastructure. So I only list some. So you can, I will share this slide, and then you can ask those questions. For example, the first question, are you trying to remove intermediaries in your industry? This is a very first important question. And it's also the project I was doing, and I'm doing, it's focusing on removing intermediaries. This is the first question. And also, are you working with digital assets or physical assets? They're very different. For example, like some logistic system, they are dealing with the physical stuff, and you need something, really need the gateway to connect these physical goods with the digital, encryption thing I just mentioned. So you need to identify this physical goods itself has the way to identify itself, verify itself. Otherwise, there's no meaning because you don't even know if the physical good is linking and associated with the data you are trying to record it onto the blockchain. So there are so many different judgments. So eventually, maybe yes, no, yes, no, yes, no, and eventually you may decide whether you need a blockchain solution. Okay, so back to my project. This is the project I started from 2016, and I really used that guidance to make my decision to devote myself into this project called Musicoin, which is now trading in several trading market, cryptocurrency market as well, with a price like 1.2 US cent, per coin. Because we started to issue this coin with the blockchain system, and then we have a web application planned, and we have the protocol planned, and we have the blockchain, Genesis means birth, give birth, and release the software to the market. And we have the desktop wallet, application we prepared. So majorly, it's not about cryptocurrency, it's about a software stack, you really starting from scratch. This is from 2016 to 2017. The whole year, we go to the market, we try to educate people, we try to talk to different stakeholders, including global indie musicians, because that's the way I'm trying to solve the problem of the industry, because how the industry works, I don't explain too much, but eventually we want the industry give musicians the fair pay they deserved, but they didn't get this kind of pay from traditional industry. And the traditional industry, there's a lot of intermediaries. That's why the first question is asked whether you want to remove those intermediaries, because there are a lot of intermediaries in music industry, which if you are a musician, and if you want to receive your money from the users, you need to go through like more than 11 organizations, different type of organizations to receive your money. But what's the percentage of the money to musician? From labels to music services like Spotify. If Spotify receives users' money and eventually goes to musician, and the musician get only 11%. of the whole money received from the end users. And that's only the major musicians, because there are also discrimination in the pricing. So if Taylor Swift, she can get about 70% of this whole revenue model. But if it's an indie musician never been very famous, he could only receive 10%. So only 2% of those musicians all around the world get well served and become celebrity, become rich. But not all those 98% of musicians. So that's why we want to really change that. We create 2 protocols in our Musicoin system using blockchain. It's all abstract at the beginning. We define it on the blueprint, not really some real system. So the first protocol we call pay-per-play. So we want to use blockchain to record all those playbacks everywhere. If we make the blockchain open, if we can record, music works, recorded, encrypted on this blockchain system, if everyone accesses it, we record once as a pay-per-play, and then pay back to the musicians in the distribution, which is set by the musicians, managers of their groups. So to give, for example, like guitarists, 25%, singers, songwriters, 50%, and drummers, whatever you have, in your band structure or your stakeholders. So we make this like a digital contract. Also the data, put on the blockchain. And every time there's a playback, we pay a coin to this structure and distribute it to every stakeholder automatically in seconds. So if this happens, we won't see that the third-party intermediaries would cut the profit in between. And if they have their own contract, they have their own distribution in the consensus, it will go this way all the time along the timeline. So that's what Musicoin is trying to define. This pay-per-play ruled on the blockchain. Nobody changed it. Once you release your works on this blockchain, it's there as a data structure, put onto the blockchain. And once people played it, one coin paid, and it will automatically be distributed to all these stakeholders. So that's the design goal. And also back to this system. We have collected 5,000. Let's listen to this music to finish. We have collected over 5,000 musicians in the passing year, and also served over 5 million of playbacks. And all those musicians, they receive this song, they receive their income from their sounds, and then eventually make sure some musicians can really pay their bill checks. And it's also increasing because we are going to be the biggest catalog in 5 years all around the world. And it's growing organically by itself, because we don't even use money to market it. And musicians spread the word by itself. This song is from a Malaysian musician, a hip-hop musician. He wrote a song directly for Musicoin, for blockchain. Thank you. Been at the sidelines watching for a minute. Your ICO has got too many.
Isaac? Well, at least I've got some idea of the... I am not saying I've got all the ideas. I see people. Questions? No?
Thanks for your presentation. I absolutely agree with you that blockchain technology is absolutely cool. But do you really think that Bitcoin as cryptocurrency will be the only one in the world? Because we all know that there is a lot of problem with consensus algorithm that use Bitcoin. It's a proof of work. So many blockchains project for now try to solve this problem. So my question, will Bitcoin stay the only one cryptocurrency in the world? What do you think?
This is a good question. I'm very pessimistic about Bitcoin's future because of the energy consumption issue, and I think that it has no intrinsic value as well attaching to real world business or economy. That's something I'm really worrying. So I agree with some economists like Paul Krugman. He said that Bitcoin could go back to zero if there's point that the tipping point is the energy consumption cannot sustain the price speculation, and the supply, because Bitcoin supply is limited, is 20 million Bitcoins totally will be served with the consensus, with the software designed by the anonymous inventor. And if there's a tipping point that this balance being break, it goes down to zero without going back again. Because the previous is going back from several hundreds of dollars, several rounds, and then back to several thousands. That's because of the mining effort is not as huge as what we can see in the next few years. So I'm very, very conservative about the future of Bitcoin itself. But again, there are some other replacement is coming, right? So we see that Litecoin, we see Bitcoin Cash, we see some other cryptocurrencies. They're using in different areas using altered algorithm to make sure they have lesser like energy consumption, etc. Also, some people in rumor that Federal Reserve in US, they are trying to issue their own cryptocurrency to attach with US dollars, and the value will be paired to each other. And this parity will give people some kind of confidence about blockchain-based cryptocurrency. But to Bitcoin itself, I see it's going to some kind of dooming fate.
Hey, nice presentation. I have such a question. How can I, for example, use this Musicoin, and can it be only I can only buy it, or it's also possible to mine it? Or?
Oh, you can definitely buy it from some markets, but I'm not advocate of buying this coin. I'm saying if you're a musician, if you have a musician friend, if you're a creator, you can definitely use it to make your own revenue from earning from this system. You don't need to become a trader. The trader is very risky because you trade high, maybe you sell low. It's always happening. That's part of the amazing part of the blockchain system as well. Your stakeholder may not really know what you're doing, but they just speculate your coin, your price, etc. Also, the miners, the same. You can mine Musicoin as well, but you don't even know what the system are doing. What's the purpose of your mining? But I know we have several thousands of miners all around the world. They buy the GPU graphic card, put it into a computer to mine Musicoin, but they don't need to understand what is Musicoin. They just see the chart to see, hey, this one could make me more money. And that's interesting because they're from maybe it's ever the first time that a system with a lot of stakeholders, they don't even know what the system is serving and doing. They're beyond the traditional definition of users because we define users as the people use the system, right? But they're not. They're just some kind of underlying people. They use computing power. They use trading tools to make money from the system. But it's also interesting. Maybe your system, think about that. Maybe your system, if you really have the bold vision, serve the global users across the region, and you want people to know it, and also you want some people that even they don't know what you are doing, and you can still get a strong support from the market. That's why the ICO thing, if you heard of this term, they really, some ICO project, they really loot a lot of money from the market before the market knows what they are doing. It's like crowdfunding. Many crowdfundings, maybe the users, the founders, they don't know what the project is about. They just give money in, right? And eventually the project may fail 50% of the chance.
One more question, it's interesting. So I work with Creative Commons licenses. That's why it's interesting for me. How do you deal with copyright issue? For example, is it something like a license that a person who put his or her music should sign or whatever?
Yeah, that's a great question because I also worked for Creative Commons back to 10 years ago. Yeah, I set up the first project in both Hong Kong and China. For Creative Commons. That's the reason I, back to creating this project as well, because Creative Commons promise a lot of licensing, free licensing, open licensing scheme, but the creators has no incentives to use it. That's why I want to use blockchain, really give users, especially the creators, a chance to really make sure their license, they're free to share, they're free to license, but at the same time they can receive the revenue and eventually make sure their creations can generate money for them. So that's something we are very careful. We need to define the real creators. So that's why we verify musicians who upload their songs first. And they need to provide their Twitter account, social media account, SoundCloud account, and even Facebook label, certification, etc., to prove they're a creator. That's why we get a little bit slowed down when we try to fight with copyright issues. We don't want people upload like another Napster back to 1990s. Napster has a big fight with the industry because the industry can easily crash it down with the copyright law. But now it's musicians, they directly license and share their content with smart contract, we call it smart contract, to license to the whole market. And they can make their own judgment and decision.